Uncensored, no holds barred talk. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is Global Reality Radio Network.
Edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thanks for being with us here for another live. You hear that? Every time I say a word, it makes a weird sound. Every time we start a show. Give me a second here. Check. Yeah, there it goes again. Still doing it. Okay, wow, my whole computer's gone bonkers here. Sorry about that. I am back, and it's not making that sound anymore, so it seems to be all right. It just seems that, my whole computer's just going bonkers. I'm using this old, I use this old computer for my news articles and all that stuff, but it's just getting old, so I got to start switching things around. But nonetheless, I am here, and I am live. Thanks for being with us for another live edition of the show. Thursday night edition of the broadcast, the 26th and the 27th of January, 2012. And we've got a shit ton of news and information to get into with you here tonight. And if we have time, we'll also continue reading from Zachariah Sitchin's The End of Days. So thanks for being with us. My website, theglobalreality.com, theglobalreality.com. And that's where you find the links to listen to the stream, which carries the live show in, rebroadcasts, and all kinds of other stuff. You'll find news up there on the website. You'll find archives. You'll find video clips from the show, audio books that were made from books that I've read here on the show, music CDs, chat room, all kinds of stuff up there, as well as the link to buy The Secret Volume 2, my newest film. You can buy that on Blu-ray and DVD. We have both of those available there in various configurations and forms, and those prices do include shipping. So if you haven't gotten one yet, now is the time to do that. If you haven't supported us this month or ever, as I know is the case with a large percentage of our listening audience, please do so now. We have our 2012 kickoff fundraiser. We've got a long way to go, and it ends next week, and we need about 500 of that. chip-in banner there for Bills, and we need to get that in for the Bills by Monday. So 500 of the chip-in banner in by Monday. But if we have 5 people donate $100, look, we'd have it taken care of. Or 10 people donated $50, it's not a lot. So I look at our numbers, I look at how many hours we're streaming and how many unique listeners we're getting. And again, those numbers are just they're not representative of the support. So if we're going to continue, we got to have your support out there. Because we do it commercial free, uncensored, and we do it here raw without a net. And if I had to start selling advertising and I have to start, trying to come up with money for this network, the broadcast is going to suffer. It won't even be worth doing it, really. Because I'll have to not talk about certain things and not talk about certain subjects and not get into certain things that I want to talk about, because we'll have to be concerned about selling advertising. And that goes against the whole model. I think it's goddamn preamps. I'm so frustrated. I mean, this shit should work. It never gives me any problem. I'll sit in here and test it it's not like I just come on here and just don't test this stuff before I go on air. I'll test this stuff for an hour before the show starts, and it's fine. It's just when I get ready to start a show, this shit starts happening. Ugh, it's frustrating. Anyway, so yeah, we've got to raise the money to pay the bills, folks. So please help if you can. Tons of news tonight. I'm going to jump right into it and waste no time here. I've got shit piling up from all week I got to get into. I want to get into all of this tonight. I'm not going to skip any news stories tonight. There's so much of this. I want to get through it all. Revealed how Robert Kennedy feared the mafia would blind his children in an acid attack. This is very interesting. You'll see in my film, The Secret, Volume 2, the connections I show between the mob and the John Birch Society, and the connections to the assassinations of both Kennedys, and the conspiracy culture popping up instantaneously out of the John Birch Society from the both of those events, specifically the John F. Kennedy assassination, in which, within a month after his death, it started popping up. But then, of course, with RFK, we have the connection to Anthony J. Hilder. And that whole barrel of monkeys right there with that thing. So Robert F. Kennedy feared his children would be blinded by the mafia in an acid attack as revenge attack for investigating them, his widow has revealed. Speaking out for the first time in 30 years, Ethel Kennedy said that her late husband was anxious that they would be targeted as retaliation for his probe into mafia racketeering. But we both know it was deeper than just the racketeering going on, and we knew that. I mean, that's why they got rid of both of them, because these guys started figuring out when they got in there, they were all, they were puppets just like everybody else is. But they were some of the rare examples of these puppets that get in there and start realizing, oh shit, we're really not running anything. We're really not in charge of anything at all. And, these people are going to force us to carry out wars and genocide and everything else, and use us as the do it in our name, use us as the scapegoat to do this, So they started trying to reverse that, and of course that's what got them killed. So interesting stuff there. I'm going to blow through a lot of these. Some of these I'll spend time on. Some of them I won't spend a lot of time on. But right now I'm trying to fix this damn preamp thing. Driving me crazy. Oh, let's try it this way. Just crank this fucker all the way up to fucking maximum potential and see what happens. Eek, human response to fear is more like animals and can overrule what we think. Now, this sounds like what we talk about with Jones. Of course, fear overrules what we think. That's why it would be appropriate to have fearmongers out there so that you can steer people exactly where you want to steer them, a la Alex Jones. Humans are more primal and animal-like than we thought. Humans share a primitive response to fear with other animals despite our ability to consciously assess danger, a new study shows. All our conscious assessments fly out the window when danger rears its head. The study published today shows that our primitive responses can contradict our conscious assessment of danger. And, yeah, exactly. Researchers at the University of Exeter and Canterbury Christchurch universities found that the subconscious has a bigger impact on our response to danger than previously thought. Scientists recruited volunteers to sit in front of a screen on which a colored shape sometimes appeared. Half the time, the image was accompanied by a mild electric shock. For the rest of the time, the image appeared, but no shock was given. During the trial, they were asked to rate whether or not they experienced a shock to be given to their skin was conducive and monitored, blah, 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 blah. Fact of the matter is, yes, animals as well as humans are all easily controlled by fear, yes. And that would just seem to slip by or fail to be mentioned by someone like Alex Jones, or fail to even be a part of the conversation. Well, right there you go. They rule us by fear. And at the end of the day, these guys are just a bunch of panty-waist little queers who like to go around fucking each other in the ass all day long. And, they think they have the divine right to rule because they came from the mythological, white Aryans and all this horse shit. Somebody sent me a message asking about RH blood, RH negative blood, all that stuff, RH positive blood. And I sent back a nice response. I hope that helps. I don't really know what else you want me to say about that. I mean, that's it. Basically, there's only 10 to 15% of the population that is not, that is RH negative, which means you don't have the RH rhesus monkey genes, and only 10 to 15% of the population doesn't have those. Well, so what's that tell you? To me, it's real cut and dry. 10 to 15% of the population, which would make up about, conveniently about the same amount as there are of the amount of people that are on this planet that actually rule the planet. 10 to 15% of the population. And that's exactly that's what the bloodlines and interbreeding and all that stuff are about. If you have RH positive blood, you were created from a splicing with a monkey, and if you don't, you weren't. You're probably reptilian if you're not. So there you go. Scientists say delay breastfeeding to increase vaccines potency. I'm not even going to address that. My God. Delay breastfeeding to increase vaccines potency. My God, do I even have to even... some of this stuff, it's like, really? Do you really need me to go over that? Some of they're just getting so much more obvious and in your face with this stuff than they used to be. It seems that they have decided to pull out of some of the fracking operations here in the area of Texas around where I live, the Barnett Shale. Chesapeake Energy to slash natural gas drilling in Barnett Shale. Yeah, I guess all the fucking earthquakes, was kind of an indicator. We shouldn't do that. Chesapeake Energy plans to cut its Barnett Shale drilling by half and curtail production because of the lowest natural gas prices in a decade. Yeah, because they've been pouring that shit out of there. They've fracked everywhere to death already, so they've got an overabundance of it now. The Oklahoma City-based company said Monday that in the second quarter it will pare back its drilling operations to 6 rigs in the Barnett in North Texas and Haynesville Shale in Louisiana and East Texas. So this doesn't have anything to do with any victories on fracking. That shit's still going on. But they like to pose it as that. There will be riots on the streets of America. George Soros predicts class war in U.S. as euro triggers collapse of economy. And now I'm probably supposed to read this entire article and go on and on about this and yell and scream about geopolitics for an hour, aren't I? I'm not going to do it. Of course, George Soros would come out and say those kind of things. He's sitting in the room where these guys are talking about doing this shit. God damn. You guys in the alternative media, and I'm ashamed to even be a part of it anymore, to be honest with you. The alternative media has turned into nothing more than the same goddamn circus the mainstream media has, and I'm sick of it. I don't even like the fact that I'm associated with this horse shit anymore, to be honest with you. That's why I don't really, I'm kind of a lone wolf over here. I don't, I'll go on Lee Rogers' show, I'll go on Red Ice Radio. Well, that's about the only people that really ask me anyway. But besides that, anyway, I don't know of any other shows I'd want to go on. But god damn, I mean, it's just everything. I'm really kind of sick and disgusted right now with all of this shit. I mean, I can't believe how many people are still, there are people that know about the CMP stuff and know about really the connections that are still supporting Ron Paul and that whole thing. I can't believe this. You know what? All I can say is when this whole thing goes down the same way it went down last time, I don't want to hear you little pussies crying. Every one of you motherfuckers out there, you know who you are. If I hear one of you crying at the end of this election cycle, when whatever the end outcome is going to be with Ron Paul happens, if I hear a goddamn one of you crying, I'm coming to each and every one of your fucking houses myself and slapping the shit out of you. Because the information's been out there for years. There's no excuse for you retards to be buying into this fucking Ron Paul shit anymore, and I'm sick to death of people's idiocy. Wake up and buy yourself a clue and realize these guys are there as puppets to get you to believe in the illusion of their phony controlled system. I mean, I saw this one. Oh, this is posted all over everybody's. Well, George Soros predicts class war. Yeah. Yeah, that's real hard for his ass. Very big prediction there. I mean, it's kind of hard to be a prediction when you're part and parcel of causing the thing to happen, don't you think? Oh, and while we're on the subject of bullshit, study of freakish mystery illness finds no cause. They have now officially said, after spending $600,000 of the taxpayers' money, that Morgellons is absolutely a figment of the person's imagination. Now, folks, not too long in the distant past, there are things now that are considered to be medical normalities that at one time were considered to be all in the person's head and being made up. I'm not kidding you. PTSD, that's the first one that comes to mind. Post-traumatic stress disorder, which humans are very susceptible to. And almost, it's one of those things, PTSD is almost so widespread that that people have it from different, get it from almost anything. Traumatic events in their life, deaths in their life, traumatic, relationship thing, family abuse, whatever it may be. But up until not too long ago in the recent past, that was considered to be all in the person's head. And now that's what they're saying Morgellons is all in people's heads. They've officially said that it's nothing. And I mean, have you seen these videos? Pulling these fibers out of people's skin, they're crawling around it. I mean, this is an advanced bioweaponry that is, for whatever reason, very selective, it seems, about who it chooses. Some people say it's associated with chemtrails and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't really actually know if that's actually true. What I think it is I think it's this chaff, this filament, because that's what this filament powder is that they spray in chemtrails, is chaff. And as it goes through this layer of the upper atmosphere up there, there's a layer up in the atmosphere that we don't normally have access to that collects all the nastiness from. I mean, they found stuff when they've done analysis of stuff from up there, of some of this chaff. What was it, like the Idaho Observer or something like that did a analysis on some of the chaff stuff? Well, what they find is, things like DDT and stuff, DDT that's, hadn't been around in years, and all these different things. And people say, well, why would they find all those things? They couldn't possibly be spraying all that stuff with chemtrails. No, they don't have to. Because when you spray that fine filament, monofilament powder, chaff, it breaks through the atmosphere. It collects all that stuff randomly, and then it falls down into the earth, and we breathe it, and, we get effects from it. Sometimes we know some, sometimes we don't. But there's a very distinct possibility that in that same layer of the atmosphere, some of these viruses and strange things that are just sitting up there in the atmosphere have mutated and turned into things that we just have no idea about. And that's what I think some of these Morgellons things are, because they seem to be fibers. In all cases, they're fibers. And these fibers, to me, resemble, when they're under a microscope, very distinctly the shaft. Now, how they would be, crawling around under people's skin and stuff like that, that's a completely different kettle of fish. I don't know. But it definitely could be, we just don't know what's mutating up there. And certainly these people probably have an idea what it is. But to say it's all in people's heads is just, my God. The thing about it is, until it spreads farther, they can't say that it's actually a problem, because they have to wait and be able to, number one, give people their story, their side of the story, their explanation of what it is, what causes it. And then they also have to create the economy around it to be able to give people the cure for it, which is, they'll end up creating another $1 billion industry off of it, just like they do everything else. That's the whole game, folks. Pump us full of all this crap while we're alive, so at the end of our lives, they can milk us dry and make us buy their pills and their medicines. It's a racket from cradle to grave, man. And what are you going to do? You're just going to continue to be a part of the racket and continue to just, let it be that way? Or are you going to stand up and say something about it? It's about damn time everybody stands up and says something about it. We got too many fucking people sitting on the sidelines, man. Or maybe I just care too much. Maybe I'm the fucking weirdo. Fuck it. Who cares? All right, we're all doomed. We're all going to die. Let's fuck this shit. Fuck the New World Order. Fuck all this crap. Who cares? I'm going to go out and get a blowjob and shoot some fucking heroin into my dick hole. And then I'm going to shove cocaine balloons up my asshole and have a stripper pull them out with her teeth. Fuck it. Why am I back here doing that? I'm going to go live. Doesn't matter anyway, right? It's all an illusion, right? So fuck it. Let's not even care. Trying to find my story I was looking for here. Oh, where'd it go? But yeah, everybody was talking about, new Gingrich calls for moon bases and space contests and all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. And, Mitt Romney, let's leave the moon where it is. Let's focus on now, blah, blah. Well, Newt Gingrich acts like all this stuff that he's talking about with these moon bases and all this stuff, it is only going to happen if he's elected president. They're going to happen whether or not he's elected president or Barack Obama or fucking Daffy Duck or whoever else. You do realize what they're doing with the decommissioned space shuttles, right? Everybody's like, why are they decommissioning the space shuttle? America doesn't even have a space shuttle, written one from the Russians. Well, and the media and just people in general have acted like that just means our space program is over. Oh, please. Do you have any idea the levels of supremacy that the United States has and has had for years in space? They're taking it to the next level. That's what this represents. They're taking all of the engines, folks, from all the decommissioned space shuttles, and they are combining these with next generation propulsion drives to build the most gigantic fuck off rocket that's ever been built by anybody, and we'll be the only country that has one. They're going to be able to carry absolutely. Let me find this article. I never covered this on the show when it was out. It was out a couple of weeks ago. Let me find this article real quick. Give me a second. They're going to be able to carry. We're not talking about. I was telling this to somebody the other day, and one of my friends, and he said, "Oh man, so you mean maybe there's a possibility that one of my great grandchildren might be on some Starfleet like in Star Trek?" I said, "No, dude, not your great grandchildren. Probably your kids." He's like, "Oh, how?" I'm like, "Do you understand that this giant rocket is set to launch in 2017?" Well, that's a long way off. It's 2012 right now, bro. That's 5 years off. And how this started, how this information got out to the public, is that somebody had snapped a picture of these engines sitting in a hangar and commented that they look like Daleks, robots called Daleks from the show Doctor Who. And so, in order to essentially make the public feel better and let them know that these weren't actually robots that were taking over everything. Not yet. Those are coming. X-37B, they're already working on that. But they had to come out and tell people, what these were. And NASA reassures us that the objects are, in fact, Pratt and Whitney Rocketdyne engines from the Space Shuttle's Endeavour and Atlantis being repurposed to be used in NASA's next-generation heavy-lift rocket. The Space Launch System, or SLS, will be able to lift 140 tons of equipment into orbit, the equivalent of 75 four-wheel drive SUVs, and is scheduled to fly in 2017. Now, folks, you know what that means. Being able to pull that kind of heavy machinery up in space and us being the only ones that have it, that means we're talking orbital platforms here. We're talking Starship Enterprise. Because now, for the first time ever, you can actually pull up the kind of equipment you need into orbit to build those kind of things. And you also, with these space treaties they've passed over the past several years, anything brought back from space or mined in space can be brought back to Earth tax-free, duty-free. That's why they've had their eye on Titan, the moon. Because Titan is like the fucking Saudi Arabia of planets, man, of moons. It's fucking full of oil, gas, methane, everything. They can send an unmanned rocket. We've got unmanned aerial things flying all over the world. We don't even need to send people out there to do it, folks. These big thrusters, they can send an unmanned rocket out there, or an unmanned system out to Titan. They can suck that motherfucker full of huge, gigantic tanks and then bring it back, put it in orbit around the Earth, and slowly drain out small amounts out of it. Bring it back down to Earth. Here you go. And this is not just me theorizing on this. They're talking about doing this. So all this horse shit about Gingrich and his, we need our space orbital platforms. We're going to the moon by the time I'm sick of term here. All this shit's going to happen without you, motherfucker. You just happen to know it because you're one of their minions. But it is interesting. I mean, it does open up the door for a lot of things. It certainly does. Well, let's see what else we have here tonight. We got a lot more to go. Give me a second. I'm having to scroll through a lot of stuff here tonight. Modern flint expert reverse engineers Neanderthal stone axes and says our ancestors were clever, elegant craftsmen. Flint Napper recreates techniques used as early as 300,000 years ago. Used by 3 early hominins, including Neanderthals, flint flakes were shaped for durability and weighting. Engineering suggests ability similar to our own 300,000 years ago. Here we go. Now we're talking. Because that's what they're so scared of about the rock wall thing, is because, I mean, the dates on this thing, we're talking 500 million low side. That's one of the reasons they're shitting themselves with fear of this thing. And boy, I'm having a ball right now researching and delving into all the material for the next film, and I'm just really deciding on what shape the film is going to take. And I know it's going to end up taking. It already is starting to take a shape, because I'm wanting to get into some. Well, the more that you research and the more that you look at things, the more different angles you see from it. And since I've already been for many years fascinated with research and theories and evidence too, there's lots of evidence. But I've already been interested in this stuff of the inner Earth world for years. I mean, Admiral Byrd, who went on the expedition there, I mean, he had 16 millimeter footage that was shot from his airplane. And it was shown in this newsreel many times in the United States. In fact, up until a couple of years ago, there were still a few people that were still alive who had gone on the record and say that they had seen it, and it was footage. The newsreel is still out there, but the parts from the footage of his plane were cut out by the CIA and confiscated. They went around to every movie theater where there had ever been a reel of this and confiscated all of them after it was shown in theaters multiple times, because there was footage of Admiral Byrd flying right into the lip of this, right at the very tip, inner, he didn't go very far in, and, woolly mammoths scampering around and stuff. And there were people that swore on their lives that they had, they'd seen that in theaters and stuff. And so some of the stuff that I'm looking at with, because really my thesis right now is buried, called the buried culture of the United States, and just what there is in the little parcel of land where I live, the United States. And what I'm starting to find is the possibilities that some of these buried sites, and the reason that there's so much resilience to want to dig any of this stuff up, is because a lot of these may in fact be doorways and entranceways and portal ways into inner Earth. And so that's become, I mean, some of the stuff I'm going to travel to go shoot of is going to be easy to do. We're talking 2-day weekend stuff locally here in Texas, and it won't, not that big of a deal. But one of the big things I really would like to do for this film is to be able to go to Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, because that's probably the closest, biggest, thing of all this from between here and there where I live. It's really not that big of a trip, but that's where I really want to go, because supposedly that's where the closest to where I live. That's that's where a big main entrance to inner Earth is supposed to be. And back a long time ago, they actually had the caverns open up a lot more, and you could actually go in there spelunking and go into parts of caves where you could only get your body through, and they've since closed all those parts off, allegedly because they in fact contain some of these entranceways, and they've closed off the entrances and the exits there to the inner Earth. I don't know, but it's definitely a fascinating subject, and it's definitely one that I didn't think would have kind of meshed or coincided with this stuff into the rock wall, but now it's starting to. The more that I'm researching, that's that's half the battle with making these films, is the research that goes into them, because ultimately, when I have an idea for a film, it changes forms in what it is over the course of doing the research, as it should. So that's what I'm working on right now. But 300,000 years ago, they were using these flints and stuff. Yep. Now, I remember this was in the news a few months ago. Remember a few months ago when they came out with that news story, and it was it looked like they found the Millennium Falcon underwater. When they said they were going to try it. Well, this is back. They seem to be I don't know whether, I can't tell. I'm going to read this. But it seems to me that they're recycling this story. I mean, I don't think there's any kind of new information in this, but maybe apparently there's video here. I don't know if there's video of the actual object, But it seems that they're trying to run this story again as if it's a new story when, in fact, we saw this, 5-6 months ago. Remember that? A team of salvage divers had discovered an unexplained object resting at the bottom of the Baltic Sea near Sweden. This thing turned up. My first reaction was to tell the guys that we have a UFO here on the bottom. See, that's the same thing they said a few months ago when they ran this article. Sonar readings show the mysterious object is about 60 meters across or about the size of a jumbo jet, and it's not alone. Nearby on the seafloor is another smaller object with a similar shape, even more fascinating. Both objects have drag marks behind them on the seafloor stretching back more than 100 feet. Drag marks couldn't mean that people are trying to indicate they've been dragged by something, and those were drag marks behind them, but more appropriately could have been something crashing down and coming skidding to a halt. But I guess maybe there's video here, so I'll have to watch that later. Well, it could just be another shipwreck or mud, but Lindenberg says the ship theory doesn't really hold because of the unusually large size of the objects. No, they'll tell if it's mud. Come on. Think guys with sonar never encounter mud? They don't know how to tell the difference? So it's interesting. And again, there's no new information here. I don't know whether or not they're recycling this story with an agenda or whether, in fact, they may have found new information. I don't know. It's hard to say. But that's one I told you I would definitely keep my eye on for developments, and there you go. But they do that. They are known to recycle stories, recycle things that they've already put out. They've recycled that Mars rock. Living proof of life found in Mars rock. They recycle that motherfucker every 3-4 months. All right, what's next? The sources say 30 pounds of cocaine is found at the United Nations. Yeah, I wonder why. Then the motherfuckers would sell it. So, of course, there'd be 30 pounds of... We don't know how it got there. 30 pounds of cocaine were received by the UN in their mailroom. Probably sent it to Kofi Annan, man. He's probably up there fucking... Kofi has the best blow parties. That's what I hear. What else? A British drug manufacturer is hoping for a big score from consumers and a green light, no pun intended, I would add, from the FDA for its medical marijuana mouth spray in 2003. Sativex, a marijuana spray, Sativex. Oh man. Well, this could be it's like green liquid in like a spray bottle. Oh man, this is gonna be dangerous. You see people walking around with spray bottles all the time, man. Now you're like, why is everybody walking around with these little green spray bottles? Oh, nothing. Sativex. Man, you guys couldn't come up with a better name than that. Yes, it's sativa, cannabis sativa. Yes, but it's Sativex. Come on. You guys, you can just call it weed spray, Acme weed spray. What kind of weed spray is this? You put this on your weeds, keep your weeds from getting out of your yard? No, man, I'm getting fucked up on this. Warning, side effects include, not giving a fuck. Oh, man. That's just too... So, Sativex, huh? May cause heaviness, sleepiness, and an overbearing need to listen to Pink Floyd and eat cereal with Mountain Dew instead of milk. Warning, may cause overabundance of Twinkies. By the way, I heard Hostess is going out of business. Stoners everywhere are crying in their fucking bongs right now. This is one of those cases, as I was kind of mentioning earlier, where they try to act like they're stopping something. Well, let me give you an example. Okay, and over the past couple of weeks, everywhere on social media, everybody's been passing around the picture of the pink goo stuff that they make chicken out of chicken nuggets out of, and all other chicken and meat and stuff in fast food. You guys have probably seen this, right? The big pink goo thing. It's been absolutely blowing up social media for the past couple of weeks. And so I thought it was strange. I was like, well, that's kind of odd. As I saw these people talking about it, on Facebook, I was like, you know what? I was telling people about the ammonia burgers and all this shit 3-4 years ago. I remember telling people a year ago about it, and some people I know here in Dallas were telling me that wasn't true, and I didn't know what I was talking about. All of a sudden, somebody passes around some stupid picture on Facebook, and all of a sudden, it's the gospel. And so I was saying, there's got to be something behind this. Why would they just now be putting this out and with everybody buying into it and believing it? They must have an agenda behind this because, again, people like myself and other people were talking about this ammonia burger stuff 2, 3, 4 years ago, and everybody said it was a conspiracy theory. Then I saw this article tonight, and I knew 100% that it was an operation. Victory for Jamie Oliver in the U.S. as McDonald's is forced to stop using pink slime in its burger recipe. So, thanks to this guy who is a television show host, Jamie Oliver, the naked chef, thanks to him and his tireless work exposing the pink goo in chicken, he has now exposed the ammonia burgers, and McDonald's and Taco Bell and all these companies are not going to use it anymore. And it was all because of him. Bullshit. I call shenanigans. Bullshit. There's a reason why this was preceded over the past few weeks by the pink goo picture being passed around social media everywhere, folks. They had to make this a big deal, have the guy who could come in to be the hero, because they were already planning on stopping and doing this anyway, because they've now invented a new chemical process which does the same thing, but doesn't use ammonia and is undetectable. So they were already going to stop doing this anyway. But they set up a slick PR campaign using social media. Everybody, I can't tell you, I mean, I don't even have that many friends on my friends list. And I must have seen that picture reposted at least 60 times over the past 2 weeks. And every time I saw it posted, I couldn't help but sit there and think to myself, you guys are really just now finding out about this ammonia burger thing? I mean, my God, folks, when are you going to I'm talking to everybody out there now. People I don't know, people I do. When are you going to realize, and look, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I do know what I'm talking about most of the time when it comes to this stuff. I don't just go around telling you stuff willy-nilly for no good reason, but I literally got called a conspiracy theorist for telling people about this ammonia burger thing. And now they roll out the naked chef as if he's and they show him, in the video, they show him like showing this to a studio audience on his show. And they're acting like this guy single-handedly discovered this himself. No, they had to have a PR campaign that would make them, not look as bad for doing this all along. After years of trying to break America, Jamie Oliver has finally made his mark by persuading one of the biggest U.S. fast food chains in the world to change their burger recipe. Now, the same day today, before this story came out, in the same British newspaper, the Daily Mail, there was this story that came out, again, same newspaper, same publication. Come on, Slowpoke. Oh, why are you so slow? And Stacey Irvine, 17, collapses after eating nothing else except chicken nuggets and maybe a few fries sometimes. McDonald's chicken nuggets every day of her life since she was 2, and she's now 17, and she collapsed, and they wondered why she collapsed. Now, that came out just a few hours before the story about victory from Jamie Oliver, and McDonald's is not using the pink slime anymore, all because of him. This is horseshit. This is absolute bullshit. They were already getting ready to not do this anymore, and they had to have a slick PR campaign that would make themselves, because that's what they like to do. See, if it just comes out that these companies do this kind of stuff, and there's no, hero on the white steed that is posing as a person that stops it, then it just looks like bad people doing bad stuff, which is bad for business. But if you have, someone who is, the whistleblower, and it was his, standing up against the injustice that caused this, you're going to have a whole hell of a lot less backlash from the general public, because then the general public has the good guy to latch onto. People love to have the villain, the scapegoat, the one to take the blame, and they love to also have the person that is the hero. And if one of those two things is missing from the equation, people just don't like it. But, man, I didn't bring this up and I didn't talk about it, but my gut was telling me over the past few weeks when I kept seeing that pink slime picture, chicken pink slime picture. It was everywhere all over social media over the past couple of weeks. And then it culminated today with this. Now they're not using it all. You know how long it takes to implement something like that? Do you know how long meat is frozen from fast food restaurants by the time it gets to you? In sometimes cases, months and years. Very long amounts of time, folks. So for them to act like this thing went from just being on TV to the companies changing their policy overnight is goddamn... It's just bizarro land to believe that. It's a fantasy land to believe that. They were already implementing this, and they had to have a way to explain it away to the public, and they had to have somebody they could put up as the whistleblower. Simple as that. I'm going to take a break, come back, and blow through a few more stories tonight, and then get into reading the End of Days by Zachariah Sitchin. Hope you'll stay with us. Please support our... All right, back here with you on the show. Global Reality Thursday night edition of the broadcast. Thanks for being with us here. We got some more news and information to get into in this part of the broadcast, and maybe a couple of emails as well. And we also will be reading from Zachariah Sitchin's The End of Days here for you tonight. Thanks for being on board. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. And how you support our work, we don't make you sit through commercials here, and we don't make you see pop-up ads and all these banner ads and crap when you come to the website. Nothing's there on the website. Nobody tries to ever sell you anything here. But we don't exist without you. We don't exist without the support of our listening audience. It's as simple as that. So we've got to meet our goal of at least to get the bills paid, $500. We need to have that in at least by Monday. So please help us out. That the treatment goes until the first for the rest of, and then the rest of that amount will go towards the travel expenses for the new film. So, but our most important aspect right now is to just get the operating costs paid for. So please go to theglobalreality.com and make a donation to help us out and to meet that goal by Monday there, folks. So please do so. Please help us out. And just, because honestly, if we can't do this show in the format that I've been doing it, because we have to sell advertising, all this, it's just not even worth doing. It's just not. I don't want to put myself in a position again where I'll have to censor what I say. It's not going to do it. It's not worth it. Life's too short, man. Life's too short to not be able to put out information and stuff that you want. You've got to see that as... I don't know how some of these hosts cannot see that as a trap. That at the end of the day, the almighty dollar is more important to you than the information it's possible for you to put out. I don't know about you, but that makes me the idea, the fact that there are pretty much every other host out there except me, with the exception of a few smaller hosts, but network hosts, absolutely. That makes, I don't know about you, but that makes me not respect any of those people. So That's the one thing I'm giving you here is that keeping me and keeping this thing going is worth it because it's no holds barred. I would never have been able to get into some of the topics and some of the things I've done had I stayed on some of the other networks I'd been on in the past. No way. But that's why we're so dangerous, is because they can't shut me up. So please show your report and help us out, folks. We got we to be honest with you, we've done piss poor on it this month. I'll just be straight up about it. I'm behind schedule. I was really already hoping to have had enough cash to go out and travel to go and get some of this stuff filmed. Haven't been able to do that yet. That's going to be postponed. I don't know. I'm pretty much going to say that if we don't meet the goal this month, because last month we barely skimmed by. If we don't meet our goal this month, that's pretty much going to be it for me for films. I'm not going to be doing films anymore. That's just all there is to it. I'm not gonna do a 2-year ordeal again like I did with this last film. It's just not going to happen. I'm planning to have this film out by July. That's my schedule. But if I can't travel to go shoot this stuff, that's not going to happen. And if that's not going to happen, I can't stay on that schedule. I'm just flat not going to do films anymore. And I'll be happy to sit back and let Jonesy and the rest of these clowns win. That's just all there is to it, folks. I'm tired of it. I'm just tired of sitting around and idly by and not being pissed off and mad because people are buying into bullshit and lies. When all the real truth is out there, it just comes down to people's willingness to accept it and getting over their own bullshit and their own egos. I'm getting to the point where fuck it. Let's go join the eugenicists and start pushing the fucking eugenicist buttons for kill, kill, kill. Not ready to do it myself. I'm just kidding. Oh, man. All this stuff is bullshit anyway. Low IQ and conservative beliefs have now been linked to prejudice. So anybody with conservative beliefs and prejudice is obviously has a low IQ. If you put stock in any of this intelligence IQ shit that these Tavistock clowns cook up, you got problems. I just thought that was funny. It's the only reason I mentioned it. Let me get the book ready here. I was going to get into some more news, but I'm done with it. Give me a second to get the book going. My email address, if you'd like to send an email, if you have a comment, a question. So somebody actually had wanted to hear more. The guy who sent the email in, John, I think it was, who'd sent in the email the other night about King Darius. And when I started talking about the history inscription, want to know more about that. Want to know if he could commission a show for a donation or something. I'd probably be interested in doing. I'd be interested in doing that too for films. If you have a mini documentary or something I can make just to put on YouTube or something on a specific topic, I just need a budget, $400 or $500, something like that. You give me a budget, you can commission films for me, mini documentaries. You want to see something made about a topic I'm not making something on, like a 1 hour thing or something like that. Slide me $400 or $500, give me a topic, I'll see what I can do. It's a great idea. Thank you to that person for suggesting that idea. I think that's brilliant. I'd be totally down and open to that. Because then it takes it out of the realm of just what I want to make films about and puts it in the realm of stuff of what other people want to see, So it's a great idea. It definitely would be down for that. Let's get into Chapter 6 of The End of Days for you here tonight. Gone with the Wind. The unleashing of the weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East underlies the fear of Armageddon prophecies coming true. The sad fact is that a mounting conflict among gods, not men, did lead to the use of nuclear weapons right there 4,000 years ago. If there ever was a most regrettable act with the most unexpected consequences, that was it. That nuclear weapons had been used on Earth for the first time not in 1945 AD, but in 2024 BCE is fact, not fiction. That fateful event is described in a variety of ancient texts from which the what and how and the why and who can be construed, reconstructed, and put in context. Those ancient sources include the Hebrew Bible. For the first Hebrew patriarch, Abraham was an eyewitness to the awesome calamity. The failure of the War of the Kings to subdue the rebel lands, of course, discouraged the Enlilites and encouraged the Mardochites, but the events did more than that. On Enlil's instructions, Ninurta got busy setting up an alternative space facility on the other side of the world, all the way in what is now Peru and South America. There you go, Nazca lines. The texts indicate that Enlil himself was away from Sumer for long stretches of time. These gods' moves caused the last two kings of Sumer, Shu-Sen and Ibibi-Sen, to waver in their allegiances and to start paying homage to Enki and his Sumerian foothold, Eridu. The divine absences also loosened controls of the Elamite Foreign Legion, and the records speak of sacrileges by the Elamite troops. Gods and men were increasingly disgusted with it all. Especially enraged was Marduk, who received word of looting, destructions, and desecrations in his cherished Babylon. It will be recalled that the last time he was there, he was persuaded by his half-brother Nergal to leave peacefully until the celestial time would reach the age of the ram. He did so, having received Nergal's solemn word that nothing would be disturbed or desecrated in Babylon. But the opposite happened. Marduk was angered by the reported desecrations of his temple there by the unworthy Elamites. 2 herds of dogs, Babylon's temple, they made a den, were flying ravens, loudly shrieking, their dung dropped there. So I was talking about birds flying around shitting everywhere. Shitbirds. From Haran he cried out to the great gods, "Until when? Has not the time travel arrived yet?" he asked in his prophetic autobiography. 24 years in Haran's midst I nested, Marduk went on. My days are completed. The time has come, he said, to set his course on to his city, Babylon, my temple to rebuild, my everlasting abode to establish. Waxing visionary, he spoke of seeing his temple, Isagala, temple whose head is lofty, rising as a mountain upon a platform in Babylon, calling it the house of my covenant. He foresaw Babylon as forever established, a king of his choice installed there, a city filled with joy, a city blessed by Anu. The messianic times, Marduk prophesied, will chase away evil and bad luck and bring motherly love to mankind. The year in which a sojourn of 24 years in Haran was completed was 2024 BCE. It marked 72 years since Marduk had agreed to depart from Babylon and await the oracular celestial time. Marduk's until when appeal to the great gods was not an idle one, for the leadership of the Anunnaki was constantly consulting informally and informal councils, alarmed by the worsening situation. Enlil hurriedly returned to Sumer and was shocked to learn that things had gone wrong even in Nippur itself. Ninurta was summoned to explain the Elamites' misconduct, but Ninurta put all the blame back on Marduk and Nabu. Nabu was summoned, and before the gods, by the way, a planet in Star Wars is called Nabu. There's just so many connections. Nabu was summoned, and before the gods, the son of his father came. His main accuser was Utu, a.k.a. Shamash, who, describing the dire situation, said, "All this Nabu has caused to happen." Speaking for his father, Nabu blamed Ninurta and revived the old accusations against Nergal in regard to the disappearance of the pre-diluvial monitoring instruments and the failure to prevent sacrileges in Babylon. He got into a shouting match with Nergal, and showing disrespect to Enlil, evil he spoke. There is no justice, destruction was conceived, Enlil against Babylon caused evil to be planned. It was an unheard of accusation against the Lord of the command. Enki spoke up, but it was in defense of his son, not of Enlil. What are Marduk and Nabu actually accused of, he asked. His ire was directed especially at his son Nergal. Why do you continue the opposition, he asked him. The two argued so much that in the end, Enki shouted to Nergal to get out of his presence. The gods' councils broke up in disarray. But all these debates, accusations, and counter-accusations were taking place against the increasingly realized fact, what Marduk referred to as the celestial oracle. With the passage of time, with the crucial shift of the processional clock by 1 degree, the age of the bull, the zodiacal age of Enlil, was coming to an end. Now that's interesting, that the shift of the processional clock. Now that's exactly what is happening this year. That's the one thing about 2012 we know actually is a fact. Whether or not, Nibiru and Mayans and all this shit is true or not, the precession of the equinoxes. And while we're not actually technically moving into a brand new age here quite yet, it does indicate that power struggles and upheavals, and I mean, maybe whoever the age of, how do I say this? What they're saying here is that different members of these Anunnaki had different ages in which they ruled. And here they're saying that the shift happened during the shift of the processional clock by 1 degree. And that's what we have going on this year in 2012, galactic alignment, the precession of the equinoxes. So what I'm saying is it possible that galactic alignment and the precession of the equinoxes in 2012 will also represent the end of the current reign of whoever the current Anunnaki world champion ruler is? If so, it would most certainly mean changes on our planet, changes on Earth, whether or not we would be totally aware of who was causing those changes or not. Maybe that's why they've been hyping up the 2012 thing so much, is because they know things are inherently going to change, but they have to have some way to make it look like it's them that's doing it. Very well could be. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I thought it was interesting terminology there, in the correlation of that between the precession of the equinoxes and the change of the processional clock. The age of the bull, the zodiacal age of Enlil, was coming to an end. The age of the ram, Marduk's age, was looming in the heavens. Ninurta could see it coming at his Ininu temple in Lagash, and Ningazida or Thoth could confirm it from all those stone circles that he had erected elsewhere on Earth. And the people knew it too. Now, that's interesting. Thoth had erected all these different stone circles around the Earth, and somehow it was able to make him tell that, of course, galactic alignment, precession of the equinoxes. It was then that Nergal, vilified by Marduk and Nabu, ordered out by his father Enki, consulting with himself, concocted the idea of resort to the awesome weapons. He did not know where they were hidden, but knew that they existed on Earth. Locked away in a secret underground place, according to a text cataloged as CT/XVI, lines 44 to 46. This underground place was somewhere in Africa, in the domain of his brother Gibel. Based on our current level of technology, they can be described as 7 nuclear devices. Clad with terror, with a brilliance, they rush forth. They were brought to Earth unintentionally from Nibiru and were hidden away in a secret safe place a long time ago. Enki knew where, but so did Enlil. A war council of the gods overruling Enki voted to follow Nergal's suggestion to give Marduk a punishing blow. There was constant communication with Anu. Anu to Earth, the words was speaking. Earth to Anu, the words pronounced. He made it clear that his approval for the unprecedented step was limited to depriving Marduk of the Sinai spaceport, but that neither gods nor people should be harmed. Anu, Lord of the gods on the earth, had pity. The ancient records state, choosing Nergal and Ninurta to carry out the mission, the gods made absolutely clear to them its limited and conditional scope. But that is not what happened. The law of unintended consequences proved itself true on a catastrophic scale. In the aftermath of the calamity that resulted in the death of countless people and the desolation of Sumir, Nergal dictated to a trusted scribe his own version of the events, trying to exonerate himself. The long text is known as the Era Epos, or it refers to Nergal by the epithet Era, the Annihilator, and to Nerta as Isham, the Scorcher. We can put together the true story by adding to this text information from several other Sumerian, Akkadian, and biblical sources. Thus, we find that no sooner was the decision reached than Nergal rushed to Gibbel's African domain to find and retrieve the weapons, not waiting for Ninurta. To his dismay, Ninurta learned that Nergal was disregarding the objective's limits and was going to use the weapons indiscriminately to settle personal accounts. I shall annihilate the son and let the father bury him. Then I shall kill the father and let no one bury him, Nergal has boasted. While the two argued, word reached them that Nabu was not sitting still. From his temple to marshal all his cities, he set his step toward the great sea. He set his course. The great sea he sat and entered and sat upon the throne was not his. Nabu was not only converting the western cities, he was taking over the Mediterranean islands and setting himself up as their ruler. Nergal/Era thus argued that destroying the spaceport was not enough. Nabu and the cities that rallied to him also had to be punished and destroyed. Now, with two targets, the Nergal-Ninurta team saw another problem. Would the upheavaling of the spaceport not sound the alarm for Nabu and his sinning followers to escape? Reviewing their targets, they found the solution in splitting up. Ninurta would attack the spaceport, and Nergal would attack the nearby sinning cities. But as all this was agreed upon, Ninurta had second thoughts. He insisted that not only the Anunnaki who manned the space facility should be forewarned, but that even certain people should be forewarned. Valiant Era, he told Nergal, will you, the righteous, destroy with the unrighteous? Will you destroy those who against you have not sinned with those who against you have sinned? Nergal-Era, the ancient texts state, who was persuaded. The words of Isham appeared to Era as fine oil, and so one morning the two, sharing the 7 nuclear explosives between them, set out on their ultimate mission. Then did the hero Era go ahead, remembering the words of Isham. Isham too went forth in accordance with the words given, a squeezing to his heart. The available texts even tell us who went to what target. Isham to the mount most supreme set his course. We know that the spaceport was beside this mount from the Epic of Gilgamesh. Isham raised his hand. The mount was smashed. That which was raised toward anew to launch was caused to wither. Its face was made to fade away. Its place was made desolate. In one nuclear blow, the spaceport and its facilities were obliterated by the hand of Ninurta. The ancient text then describes what Nergal did. Emulating Isham, Era, the way of the king followed. The cities he finished off. To desolation he overturned them. His targets were the sinning cities, whose kings had formed the alliance against the kings of the east, the plain in the south of the Dead Sea. So is that how we got all those deserts in the Middle East, essentially, as they launched all these weapons and it turned everything to sand? Is that why there's all that yellow glass out in Egypt in the desert where, just for miles and miles and miles, high-intensity heat had been applied there, causing this yellow glass to form that the Egyptians carved all kinds of scarab beetles and stuff out of? Very well could be. Something of high heat had to cause that. And so it was in that year 2024 BCE, nuclear weapons were unleashed in the Sinai Peninsula and in the nearby plain of the Dead Sea. And the spaceport and the 5 cities were no more. Amazingly, yet no wonder if Abraham and his mission in Canaan is understood the way we explain it. It is in this apocalyptic event that the biblical record and the Mesopotamian records converge. We know from the Mesopotamian texts relating the events that, as required, the Anunnaki guarding the spaceport were forewarned. The two, Nergal and Ninurta, incited to commit the evil, made its guardians stand aside. The gods of that place abandoned it. Its protectors went up to the heights of heaven. They flew off in a ship. But while the Mesopotamian texts reiterate that the two made the gods flee, and made them flee the scorching, they are ambiguous regarding whether that advance notice was also extended to the people in the doomed cities. It is here that the Bible provides missing details. We read in Genesis that both Abraham and his nephew Lot were indeed forewarned, but not other residents of the sinning cities. The biblical report, apart from throwing light on the upheavaling aspects of the events, contains details that shed an amazing light on the gods in general and on their relationship with Abraham in particular. The story begins in chapter 18 of Genesis when Abraham, now 99 years old, sitting at the entrance to his tent on a hot midday, lifted his eyes and all of a sudden saw three men standing above him. Though they are described as Anashim, men, there was something different or unusual about them. For he rushed out of his tent and bowed to the ground and was referring to himself as their servant. He washed their feet and offered them food. As it turned out, the three were divine beings. As they leave, their leader, now identified as the Lord God, decides to reveal to Abraham the trio's mission, to determine whether Sodom and Gomorrah are indeed sinning cities whose upheaval is justified. While two of the three continue towards Sodom, Abraham approaches and reapproaches God with words that are identical to those in the Mesopotamian texts. Wilt thou destroy the righteous with the unrighteous? What followed was an incredible bargaining session between man and God. Perchance there are 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou destroy and not spare the city on account of the 50 righteous within it? Abraham asked God. When told that, well, the city would be spared if 50 righteous men reside there, Abraham said, what about just 40? What about only 30? And so on. It went down to 10, and Yahweh went away as soon as he had finished speaking, and Abraham returned to his place. Well, there's your answer to your question. Somebody was asking me last time if Yahweh was one of these Anunnaki, and it appears right there as so. That makes a whole of a lot of sense when you look at the Tetragrammaton. If you look at that symbol, every time I've ever seen the Tetragrammaton, it always seemed like it was an alien, alien language, alien symbol to me. So there you go. Yahweh is, the Tetragrammaton is a symbol for Yahweh. So the other two divine beings, the tale's continuation in chapter 19 calls them Melachim, literally emissaries, but commonly translated to angels. They arrived in Sodom for the evening. The happenings there confirmed its people's wickedness, and at daybreak, the two urged Abraham's nephew Lot to escape with his family, for Yahweh is about to destroy the city. The lingering family asked for more time, and one of the angels agreed to have the upheaval delayed long enough for Lot and his family to reach the safer mountain. And Abraham got up early in the morning, and he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld. And lo, vapor went up from the earth, as if it was from the smoke of a furnace. Abraham was then 99 years old, having been born in 2123 BCE. The time had to be 2024 BCE. The convergence of the Mesopotamian text with the biblical narrative of Genesis concerning the upheaval of Sodom and Gomorrah is at once one of the most significant confirmations of the biblical's veracity in general and of Abraham's status and role in particular, and yet one of the most shunned by theologians and other scholars because of its report of the events of the preceding day. The three divine beings, angels who looked like men, while I'm on the subject of that, let me read this email real quick. From Bradley. He says, hi, Josh. I tried to send an email through my regular account. Didn't work, blah, blah, blah. I was trying to ask or maybe find out this question of what did the Anunnaki actually look like? Those little figurines that were taken out of the Baghdad Museum, plus the carvings that kind of show reptilian features. But then again, there are some artist renditions of all of those that show some of the Anunnakis that may be half-breeds, not pure-blooded being, a little more human-looking. You can find those on Flickr. Just type in Anunnaki, blah, blah, blah. I don't really know for sure. Yes, we've seen some stuff that had some reptilian features. We also seen some things that had bird-like features, and man-like creatures with wings. So there's a lot of contention, a lot of controversy over that. But I personally, what I'll tell you, but what I think it is I think that absolutely, I think where the reptilian thing comes from, absolutely comes from the fact that I think it was more, I don't think these people were reptilian. I think they were actually, well, kind of like angels, bird people. Or maybe, maybe they were apes, like Planet of the Apes. I mean, maybe that's a very distinct possibility too. They were, intelligent creatures like us. I don't know. I mean, we don't really know for sure. But it does seem like they had the features of men. But these other features as well. And they flew around in these, Klingon bird of prey looking planes. So there again, there's the bird motif again, because you got to remember, all birds are derived from reptiles. The true name of a bird, if you look it up, is the avian reptile. This is why you see the elite obsessed with bird symbology and snake symbology. Why do you think, what in there, one of the United States things on the back of the coin is like a, ball-headed eagle with a snake in its mouth or something like that? Same thing why they use the double-headed eagle. Because yes, it's a bird, so people don't think the association of reptile because they don't think of the scientific term and scientific terminology and classification for a bird, which is absolutely avian reptile. That's why they call the bird flu the avian flu, because it's a bird flu. Well, that's what I think is going on with a lot of this reptilian stuff. I think that it's actually more appropriately, these things had wings. There were men with wings that also flew in these planes that looked like birds as well, like fucking, Klingon bird of prey or something. So I forgot about that email, but I hope that helps, Bradley. The question is, the answer is, I don't really know, man. But they definitely had some characteristics of, birds or reptilians or something. But because of its report of the events of the preceding day, the three divine beings, angels who looked like men, had paid Abraham a visit. It smacks too much of an ancient astronaut's tale. Those who question the Bible or treat the Mesopotamian texts as just myths have sought to explain the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah as some natural calamity. Yet the biblical version confirms twice that the upheaval by fire and sulfur was not a natural calamity, but a premeditated, postponable, and even cancelable event. Once when Abraham bargained with the Lord to spare the cities so as not to destroy the righteous with the unjust, and again when his nephew Lot obtained a postponement of the upheaval itself. Photographs of the Sinai Peninsula from space still show the immense cavity and the crack in the surface where the nuclear explosion had taken place. The area itself is strewn to this day with crushed, burnt, and blackened rocks. They contain a highly unusual ratio of isotope uranium-235, indicating, in expert opinions, exposure to sudden immense heat of nuclear origin. The upheaval of the cities in the plain of the Dead Sea caused the southern shore of the sea to collapse, leading to a flooding of the once fertile area and its appearance to this day as an appendage separated from the sea by a barrier called the El Lisan, the tongue. Attempts by Israeli archaeologists to explore the seabed there have revealed the existence of enigmatic underwater ruins. But the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, in whose half of the Dead Sea the ruins are, put a stop to further exploration. Interestingly, the relevant Mesopotamian texts confirm the topographic change and even suggest that the sea became a Dead Sea as a result of the nuclear bombing. Era, they tell, dug through the sea. Its wholeness he divided. That which lives in it, even the crocodiles, will be made to wither. The two, as it turns out, did more than destroy the spaceport and the sinning cities as a result of the nuclear explosions. And the chain reactions of unintended consequences began. The historical records show that the Sumerian civilization collapsed in the 6th century of the reign in Ur of Abibi Sin in 2024 BCE. It was, the reader will recall, the very year in which Abraham was 99 years old. Scholars assumed at first that Sumer's capital, Ur, was overrun by barbarian invaders, but no evidence for such a destructive invasion was ever found. A text titled A Lamentation over the Destruction of Ur was then discovered. It puzzled the scholars, for it bewailed not the physical destruction of Ur, but its abandonment. The gods who had dwelt there abandoned it. The people who dwelt there were gone. Its stables were empty. The temples, the houses, the sheepfolds remained intact, standing but empty. Other lamentation texts were then discovered. They lamented not just of Ur, but all of Sumer. And again, they spoke of abandonment. Not only did the gods of Ur, Nanar, and Ningal abandon Ur, Enlil, the wild bull, abandoned his beloved temple in Nippur. His spouse Ninlil was also gone. Ninmah abandoned her city, Kesh, and Nana, the queen of Erech, abandoned Erech. And Ninurta forsook his temple in Enu. His spouse Baal was also gone from Lagash. One Sumerian city after another was listed as having been abandoned. Without the gods, people, or animals, their scholars were now puzzling over some dire catastrophe, a mysterious calamity that affected the whole of Sumer. What could it be? The answer to the puzzle was right there in those texts. Gone with the wind. No, this is not a play of words on the title of a famous book, movie. That was the refrain in the lamentation texts. Enlil has abandoned his temple. He was gone by the wind. Ninlil from her temple was gone by the wind. It means they flew away. Nanar had abandoned Ur. His sheepfolds were gone by the wind, and so on and on. The scholars have assumed that this repetition of the words was a literary device, a refrain that the lamenters repeated over and over again to highlight their grief. But that was no literary device. That was the literal truth. Sumer and its cities were literally emptied as a result of a wind, nuclear wind. An evil wind, the lamentation and then other texts reported, came blowing and caused a calamity, one unknown to men, to befall the land. It was an evil wind that caused cities to be desolate, caused houses to be desolate, caused stalls to be desolate, the sheepfolds to be emptied. There was no desolation, but no destruction, emptiness, but no ruins. The cities were there, the houses were there, the stalls and the sheepfolds were there, but nothing alive remained. Even Sumer's rivers flowed with water that is bitter. The once cultivated fields grow weeds, and in the meadows the plants have withered. All life is gone. It was a calamity that never happened before. Carried by the evil wind, it was a death from which there was no escape. It was a death which roams the street, is let loose in the road. The highest wall, the thickest wall, it passes like a flood. No door can shut it out. No bolt can turn it back. Those who hid behind doors were felled inside. Those who ran to the rooftops died on the roofs. It was an unseen death. It stands beside a man, yet no one can see it. When it enters a house, its appearance is unknown. It was a gruesome death. Cough and phlegm weakened the chest. Then mouth was filled with spittle, dumbness, and haze. See, that sounds like a biological weapon. As the evil wind clutched its victims, their mouths were drenched in blood. See, that sounds like what happens with like anthrax or ricin or something like that. That's what that sounds like. I mean, you know, there's definitely an indication that there was nuclear weapons unleashed there, but how do we know there wasn't also biological weapons unleashed there? These guys weren't going to take any chances. They wanted everything wiped out. The texts make clear the evil wind bearing gloom from city to city was not a natural calamity. It resulted from a deliberate decision of the great gods. It was caused by a great storm ordered by Anu, a decision from the heart of Enlil, and it was the result of a single event spawned in a single spawning in a lightning flash, an event that occurred far away in the west. From the midst of the mountains it had come, from the plain of no pity it had come. Like a bitter venom of the gods, from the west it had come. That the cause of the evil wind was the nuclear upheaval back in and near the Sinai Peninsula was made clear when the text asserted that the gods knew its source and cause, a blast, an explosion. An evil blast heralded the baleful storm. An evil blast was its forerunner. Mighty offspring, valiant sons were the heralds of the pestilence. The authors of the lamentation text, the gods themselves, left us a vivid record of what had taken place. As soon as the awesome weapons were launched from the skies by Ninurta and Nergal, they spread awesome rays, scorching everything like fire. The resulting storm and a flash of lightning was created, a dense cloud that brings doom. A nuclear mushroom then rose to the sky, followed by rushing wind gusts, a tempest that scorches the heavens. It was not a day to be forgotten. On that day when heaven was crushed and the earth was smitten, its face obliterated by the maelstrom, when the skies were darkened and covered with a shadow, on that day the evil wind was born. The various texts kept attributing the venomous maelstrom to the explosion at the place where the gods ascend and descend, to the obliteration of the spaceport rather than to the destruction of the sinning cities. It was there in the midst of the mountains that the nuclear mushroom cloud arose in a brilliant flash, and it was from there that the prevailing winds coming from the Mediterranean Sea carried the poisonous nuclear cloud eastward, toward Samir, and there it caused not destruction, but a silent annihilation, bringing death by nuclear poison to all that lives. Oh, okay, there you go. So it was the fallout that they died from. Okay, not some biological thing. Oh, gotcha. It is evident from all of the relevant texts that, with the possible exception of Enki, who had protested and warned against the use of the awesome weapons, none of the gods involved expected the eventual outcome. Most of them were earthborn, and to them, the tales of the nuclear wars on Nibiru were tales of the elders. Did Anu, who should have known better, think perhaps that the weapons hidden so long ago would hardly work or not work at all? Did Enlil and Ninurta, who had come from Nibiru, assume that the winds, if at all, would blow the nuclear cloud toward the desolate deserts that are now Arabia? There is no satisfactory answer. The texts only state that the great gods paled at the storm's immensity. But it is clear that soon as the direction of the winds and the intensity of the nuclear venom were realized, an alarm was sounded for those in the wind's path, gods and people alike, to run for their lives. The panic, fear, and confusion that overtook Sumir and its cities as the alarm was sounded are vividly described in a series of lamentation texts, such as the Lamentation, the lamentation over the desolation of and Sumir, the Nippur lamentation, the Uruk lamentation, and others. As far as the gods were concerned, it appears that it was by and large each man for himself. Using their varied craft, they took off by air and by water to get out of the wind's path. As for the people, the gods did sound the alarm before they fled, as described in the Uruk lamentation. Rise up, run away, hide in the steppe. The people were told in the midst of the night. Seized with terror, the loyal citizens of Uruk ran for their lives, but they were felled by the evil wind anyway. The picture, though, was not identical everywhere. In the capital, Nanar's sin was so incredulous that he refused to believe that Ur's fate had been sealed. His long and emotional appeal to his father Enlil to avert the calamity is recorded in the lamentation. Unwilling to accept the inevitable and too devoted to the people of to abandon them, Nanar and Ningal decided to stay put. It was daytime when the evil wind approached Of that day I still tremble, Ningal wrote, but of that day's foul smell we did not flee. As doomsday came, a bitter lament was raised in but of its foulness we did not flee. The divine couple spent the night of nightmares in the termite house, an underground chamber deep in their ziggurat. See, these guys had underground bases just like our elite do. By morning, as the venomous wind was carried off from the city, Ningal realized that Nanar was ill. She hastily put on garments and had the god carried out and away from the city that they loved. And at least another deity was also harmed by the evil wind. She was Ninurta's spouse, Baal, who was alone in Lagash, for her husband was busy destroying the spaceport. Loved by the people who called her Mother Baal, she was trained as a healing physician and just could not force herself to leave. The Lamentations record that on that day the storm caught up with Lady Baal as if she was immortal. The storm caught up with her. It is not clear how badly she was stricken, but subsequent records from Samir suggest that she did not survive long thereafter. Eridu, Enki's city, lying farthest to the south, was apparently on the edge of the evil wind's path. We learn from the Eridu lament that Ninki, Enki's spouse, flew away from the city to a safe haven in Enki's African Abzu. Ninki, the great lady flying like a bird, left her city. But Enki himself departed from the city only far enough to get out of the evil wind's way. The lord of Eridu stayed outside the city. For the fate of his city he wept with bitter tears. Many of Eridu's citizens followed him, camping in the fields at a safe distance as they watched. For a day and a half, the storm put its hands on Eridu. Amazingly, the least affected of all the land's major centers was Babylon, for it lay beyond the storm's northern edge. As the alert was sounded, Marduk contacted his father to seek advice. "What are the people of Babylon to do?" he asked. "Those who can escape should go north," Enki told him, and in the manner of the two angels who had advised Lot and his family not to look back when they had fled Sodom, so did Enki instruct Marduk to tell his followers neither to turn nor look back. And why did they want them not to look back? Because if they were looking back, they would see the blinding light of the explosion, which would make them go blind, which tells you that they indeed had eyes very much like ours. If escape was not possible, the people should seek shelter underground. Get them into a chamber below the earth, into a darkness, was Enki's advice. Following this advice, and due to the wind's direction, Babylon and its people were unharmed. As the evil wind passed and blew away, its remnants, we learn, reached the Zagros Mountains farther east. It left Sumer desolate and prostrate. The storm desolated the cities, desolated the houses. The dead lying where they fell remained unburied. The dead people, like fat placed in the sun of themselves, melted away. Yeah, they were in the sun so long they eventually just melted, and that's crazy. In the grazing lands, large cattle and small became scarce. All living creatures came to an end. The sheepfolds were delivered to the wind. The cultivated fields withered. On the banks of the Tigris and the Euphrates, only sickly weeds grew. In the swamps, the reeds rotted in a stench. No one treads the highways. No one seeks out the roads. O temple of Nanar in Ur, bitter is thy desolation. The lamentation poems bewailed. O Ningal, whose land has perished, make thy heart like water. The city has become a strange city. How can one now exist? The house has become a house of tears. It makes my heart like water. Ur and its temples have been delivered to the wind. After 2,000 years, the great Sumerian civilization was gone with the wind. In recent years, archaeologists have been joined by geologists, climatologists, and other science experts for the multidisciplinary effort to tackle the enigma of the abrupt collapse of Sumer and Akkad at the end of the 3rd millennium BCE. A trend-setting study was done by an international group of 7 scientists from different disciplines titled Climate Change and the Collapse of the Akkadian Empire, Evidence from the Deep Sea, published in the scientific journal Geology in its April 2000 issue. Their research used radiological and chemical analysis of ancient dust layers from that period obtained from various Near Eastern sites, but primarily from the bottom of the Gulf of Oman. Their conclusion was that an unusual climate change in the areas adjoining the Dead Sea gave rise to dust storms, and that the dust, an unusual atmospheric mineral dust, was carried by the prevailing winds over southern Mesopotamia all the way beyond the Persian Gulf. The very pattern of Sumer's evil wind. Carbon dating of the unusual fallout dust led to the conclusion that it was due to an uncommon dramatic event that occurred near 4,025 years ago before the present. That, in other words, means that near around 2025 BC, the very 2024 BCE indicated by the texts. Interestingly, the scientists involved in that study observed in their report that the Dead Sea level fell abruptly by 100 meters at that time. They leave the point unexplained, but obviously the breach of the Dead Sea southern barrier and the flooding of the plain, as described by us, explained what had happened. The scientific journal Science devoted its issue of April 27, 2001 to paleoclimate worldwide. In a section dealing with the events in Mesopotamia, it refers to evidence from Iraq, Kuwait, and Syria that the widespread abandonment of the alluvial plain between the Tigris and Euphrates River was due to dust storms commencing at about 4025 BCE before the present. And the study leaves unexplained the cause of the abrupt climate change, but it adopts the same date for it, 4025 years before AD 2011. That fateful year modern science confirms was 2024 BCE. And so that's the end of chapter 6. Chapter 7 next time is Destiny had 50 names. So is that what is supposed to happen? So the end of the world. See, that's the correlation Zachariah Sitchin's is making here. Is that, and we have seen some correlations like that. Things that happen on certain years. So it seems that that's how he's ending that chapter. Is that well, I guess the Middle East is going to get nuked all over again in 2024, just like it did, before. Maybe that's so. Maybe that's so. When all the wars seem to be taking place in that area, it'd be hard to argue that, wouldn't it? But definitely interesting stuff, and I've already learned a lot from this. A lot of stuff I didn't already know, so I hope you have too. Well, we're going to leave it there tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow night for the Friday night edition of the show. Please support our work, folks. We've gotten like nothing in this week at all for donations, at all. We got $500 in bills due by Monday. We need to get that in here. Plus, I've got to live and survive and be able to continue doing this work. And after spending all this money that I've spent over the past year in C-Right Volume 2, and we just, I'm putting it all on the line here. What are you doing? You need to put it on the line too. TheGlobalReality.com. Support our work if you can. My name is Josh Reeves. I love each and every one of you, and we'll see you next time. You guys have a great night. Take care.